You know, I've lived 73 years on this earth, and I thought I'd seen every kind of surprise a family could throw at you. But last month, on my birthday, my daughter taught me that you're never too old to be blindsided by the people you love most. Let me back up a little. I'm Margaret, Maggie to most folks, and I live in a cozy 2-bedroom house in suburban Michigan, the kind of place where you know your neighbors and the mailman waves every morning. My late husband Frank and I raised 3 kids here, Tommy, Sarah, and little Becca, though she's 42 now and hates when I call her that. After Frank passed 6 years ago, the house felt too big and too quiet, but my children wouldn't hear of me moving. It's your home, Mom, they'd say, and I suppose they were right. This past January, my birthday fell on a Saturday. Now, I'm not one for big fusses, never have been. A simple dinner, maybe a store-bought cake from Meijer, and having my family around is more than enough. But Sarah, my middle child, called me 2 weeks before and said, "Mom, this year's going to be special. I'm planning something, and I don't want you to worry about a single thing." I should have known right then that something was up. Sarah's a lawyer, always busy, always checking her phone during dinner. Her planning anything elaborate seemed about as likely as a Michigan winter without snow. The morning of my birthday arrived with that bright, bone-chilling cold we get in late January. I made myself coffee in my favorite mug, the one with the faded, "World's Best Grandma," that my grandson Dylan painted in 3rd grade, and settled into Frank's old recliner by the window. Outside, the neighborhood was picture perfect, snow covering the lawns like buttercream frosting, icicles hanging from the gutters, and old Mrs. Patterson across the street already shoveling her driveway despite me telling her 100 times to hire the Nelson boy to do it. Around noon, Sarah called. "Mom, be ready by 6. Dress nice. We're taking you somewhere." "Where?" I asked. "It's a surprise," she said, and I could hear that edge in her voice. The same one she used to get as a teenager when she was hiding something. By 5:30, I was standing in front of my closet, feeling foolish. What does "dress nice" mean? I settled on the navy dress I'd worn to my grandson's graduation, added the pearl necklace Frank gave me for our 30th anniversary, and even put on a little lipstick. When I looked in the mirror, I saw an old woman trying too hard, but I also saw Frank's eyes crinkling in that way they used to when he'd say, "You're beautiful, Mags." Sarah arrived right at 6 with her husband David. No grandkids, which seemed odd. Usually, Emma and Dylan were glued to their mother's hip on family occasions. "You look gorgeous, Mom," Sarah said, but she barely looked at me. She was checking her phone again, typing something quickly. The drive took 20 minutes, and we ended up at the Heritage Room, this fancy restaurant downtown that I'd only been to once, for Tommy's wedding rehearsal dinner. The kind of place with cloth napkins and waiters who fill your water glass before you even notice it's empty. "Sarah, this is too much," I started to say, but she was already ushering me inside, her hand firm on my elbow. The private dining room in the back was full of people. And I mean full. All 3 of my kids, their spouses, all 6 grandchildren, my sister Louise who I hadn't seen since Thanksgiving, my neighbor Betty, people from my old book club, even Father Morrison from St. Mary's where I volunteer. Surprise. They all shouted, and I felt my eyes go hot with tears. Becca rushed forward and hugged me tight, and Tommy was grinning that lopsided grin of his, and the grandkids were bouncing around like popcorn kernels. But Sarah stood back, still holding her phone, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Dinner was beautiful, prime rib and roasted vegetables, a string quartet playing in the corner, chocolate cake with buttercream roses. People gave speeches. Louise told the story about how I once drove 3 hours in a snowstorm to bring her soup when she had the flu. Betty talked about how I'd organized meals for her family when her husband had his heart attack. Father Morrison mentioned my work with the food pantry. I was overwhelmed, truly. But I kept glancing at Sarah, who was sitting at the far end of the table, barely eating, her phone face down beside her plate. Then came time for gifts. Tommy gave me a beautiful photo album filled with pictures of Frank and me through the years. Becca presented a gift certificate for a spa day with her. The grandkids had made cards and drawings, each one more precious than the last. Finally, Sarah stood up. The room went quiet. "Mom," she began, and her voice had that lawyer tone, clear and projected. "I wanted to do something different this year. Something meaningful." She pulled out her phone and connected it to a screen that had been set up in the corner. I felt my stomach clench. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones the way I used to feel when the kids were lying about broken lamps or bad report cards. The screen flickered to life, and there I was. A photo of me from 3 months ago, leaving my house on a Tuesday morning. Then another photo, and another. Me at the grocery store. Me at the library. Me at the senior center. Me meeting Linda Thompson for coffee at the diner. For the past 6 months, Sarah continued, her voice growing harder, I've been documenting Mom's activities because I've been worried about her spending. The room had gone cold. I couldn't breathe. Mom's been withdrawing cash regularly. Going places alone. Being secretive about her bank account. I thought she might be getting scammed. You hear about these things happening to elderly people all the time. Elderly. The word hit me like a slap. So I did some digging. And I found out. Sarah Ann Morrison, I said, standing up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. My voice came out stronger than I'd felt in years. That is enough. Everyone was staring. The string quartet had stopped playing. My 6-year-old granddaughter Lily looked like she might cry. You've been tracking me, I said, my voice shaking now but not with fear, with fury. Following me, checking my bank account. Mom, I was worried. You were worried, so you violated my privacy. Treated me like a child who can't manage her own life. Sarah's face flushed. You were acting strange. The cash withdrawals, the secretive behavior. Because I didn't want you to know. I shouted. The room was dead silent. Because I knew you'd do exactly this, assume I'm some feeble old woman who can't be trusted. Tommy stood up. Mom, what's going on? I looked around at all of them, these people I loved, who loved me, who were staring at me now with confusion and concern and pity. And suddenly, I was done. Done with being handled. Done with being managed. I've been taking ballroom dancing lessons, I said quietly. At the senior center. With a man named Arthur Chen. The silence somehow got deeper. We met at the food pantry. His wife died 2 years ago. We're friends. We dance. We have coffee. I pay cash because I didn't want it showing up on bank statements that you all apparently monitor like I'm some kind of criminal. Becca's hand went to her mouth. Tommy looked at Sarah, who had gone pale. I'm not being scammed. I'm not losing my mind. I'm not helpless. My voice cracked. I'm just trying to live. Frank's been gone 6 years, and I'm lonely, and I wanted one thing, just one thing, that was mine. I grabbed my purse. Thank you for the party. It was lovely. I'm going home now. Mom, Sarah started. Don't, I said. Don't follow me. Don't call me tonight. I need space. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, even though my legs were shaking. Betty caught up with me in the parking lot and drove me home in silence, bless her heart. I spent the rest of that night in Frank's recliner, staring out at the dark street, wondering how things had gotten so twisted. My phone buzzed around midnight. A text from Sarah, Mom, I'm so sorry. Can we please talk? Asterisk. I turned off my phone. Because what Sarah didn't know, what I hadn't told anyone yet, was that Arthur had asked me something important last week. Something that would change everything. And now I had to figure out what my answer would be. Did this story feel real to you? Tell me in the comments. For more emotional grandma stories, don't forget to subscribe. The next secret is coming soon.